Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Welcome if you're new. Today we're going to be continuing on with the acrylic painting process, and today we're going to be doing layers 3 and 4. So for today's project you're going to need the whatever you were able to get together as far as non-water soluble crayons, oil pastels, color pencils, pens, markers, stamps, anything that's not water soluble will work for this stage. I personally just use color pencils, ordinary cheap crayons, and oil pastels. You will also need 3 different colors of paint, either in the cool palette or the warm palette, and you will also need a variety of paintbrushes. Sorry. And that's pretty much all you will need today. So I think we'll just go ahead and jump right in. Let's start with our warm piece. And all I do is I will take out a few of my warm colored supplies from my stash here. I don't get very picky. I kind of just pick what I see first. And I do kind of grab a lot because I don't know what I'm going to use. And then this is where you just start mark making. I do also keep a little folder of some of my favorite marks if I kind of have a brain fog and I'm not sure what I'm going to do, so I always keep this handy just in case. I highly recommend doing this for yourself as well, to keep a little log of marks that you like to make. But I don't usually refer to that right away. I usually only pull that out if I'm starting to create and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't think of another mark to make. But yeah, let's get started. So what you're going to do is you're really just going to kind of scribble all over this thing with marks. So I like to make these lines. And then once I'm done with the color, I'll just set it aside and I don't usually use it again. And if something doesn't like show up very dark, that's okay too, because again, we're going to be covering up like 90% of this. And I don't have like a certain amount of marks that I make. I kind of just keep going until I feel like, okay, that's good enough for me. Let's do this one. I do love a good scallop. And I really like this neon yellow pastel. But again, you can't really see it very well. But that's okay. You never know what's going to show through and what's going to be hidden. That's kind of the beauty of this. And here's kind of what you see that I'm talking about in part 2 of our series, where you start to build like this abstract that you might start to really like, and you might not want to move ahead, and you might just want to keep them as cute little abstracts, and that's okay too. And let's do one more mark. Let's do this yellow. So with these oil pastels, they can be kind of chunky, so I'll just kind of rub them around so they're not as chunky. And that is it for our warm colored page. That's layer 3 completely done. This is probably the easiest layer and the quickest layer. Then let's move on to our cool piece. So I'm going to get all these warm color supplies out of the way. Again, I'm going to rummage through my bin, find some cool colored supplies that I like. I really like this purple. This dark purple's nice. As you can see, I have way more warm colors than cool colors, and that's okay. Ooh, this teal's pretty. Okay, let's go with that. Yes, okay. And I think I'm going to turn this around like this. And I tend to do these stripy marks on all my pieces. I'm not sure why. I just have a lot of fun doing that. These are kind of chunky, so I'm going to rub them out a little bit. Let's do another scallop here. And what do I want to do with this? Now I'm going to refer to my little cheat sheet here. That's one that I like, but I don't use a lot. You might see that I've smeared some of that yellow in there. Like I mentioned before, yellow and purple are not best friends. So you can see there's a little bit of brown happening there. That's okay. It'll get covered. And voila. Layer 3 is done on both pieces. Like I said, easiest, quickest layer that you're going to have. All right, in the next step for layer 4, this is where you're going to want to gather 3 colors, either in your warm palette or your cool palette. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my colors and I will be right back. All right, I am back. I have chosen 3 colors for each of my palettes. I am also going to grab one of my old gift cards here to use as a palette. And for the warm spread, I have chosen this Opera Pink Gouache. And I've also chose an Apple Barrel Pale Daffodil Yellow. And I've also chose an Apple Barrel Tropic Orange. And I am just going to put a little of these each on my little mini palette here. You could do more colors, you could do less colors. I just find for what I like to do, 3 colors is kind of like the perfect trifecta for what I like to do. Again, I also make, with the paint, little marks that I like for future reference in case I get stuck. You could also make the same scribble marks that you did with the paint as well. So that's just a reference that I like to keep handy for myself, not a requirement. So let's start with our warm piece. I did grab 3 filbert brushes that are my favorite, different sizes. And I do like to kind of water these down, kind of how we used the acrylic paints to make our background on this one. It's similar to that when I paint, just because I want it to flow really nice. Again, this is a very loose process. Just have fun. There's no right or wrong way to do this because most of it will get covered up. And I just play. This is also a pretty fast layer, but it does take a little longer than your scribbles, for sure. All right. Clean my brush. And I'm going to move on to this orange. And I will save what I have left here to put on some scrap paper to use in the future. And let's move on to our yellow. Let's see, what do I want to do? Let's put some lines in here. And what else do I want to do with this one? Let's do circles. It's kind of similar to those, but a little bigger. I will be honest, I don't always love the shapes I make, but again, I don't get hung up on it because we will be covering up most of it. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I probably want to do one more. Let's overlap right here. All right. And this layer is done. I'll let this dry. So that's layer 4. Now you are ready for layer 5, which is actually going to be starting to plan whatever you want to paint on here. So this is how I prep all of my surfaces for my latest paintings. So I will set this one aside and I will clean my brush and move on to our cool colors, and I will meet you back here. All right, and I am back with our cool piece. I did go ahead and clean off my palette and use up my excess paint to make scrap paper to use for future projects for the collage stage. Let's get that out of the way there. And then for our cool colors, I did choose an apple barrel in the color Key West, a ceram coat in the color Pansy, and an apple barrel in the color Caribbean. So just like last time, you're just going to put a little of each color on your palette. Perfect. I think I'm going to use a smaller brush this time. And let's do some big scallops. And let's do a little one here. Perfect. I'll rinse my brush. I'm going to use this color, this Key West color, which is one of my favorite craft paint colors. Then our purple. And I think I'm going to fill this in. And I like that it's a little translucent and still shows our collaged paper and our marks. If you wanted it to be more opaque, you can add a thicker layer where you're not watering down the paint, but I like to see through And let's put a little in here. It's a little thinner. And I might still put another shape of the purple. Let's see. What do I want to do? Do some little lines. There we go. I'm happy with that. So that is layer 4 complete for our cool color. I'll show you them side by side. There they are done. I'm going to go ahead and let these dry. And in our next video, we are going to start planning what we're actually going to paint on these. And I will show you kind of how I leave a little space between what I illustrate so you can kind of see that 1% of our background that we created. I do like this one. It's kind of hard to not paint over it because I like it so much. This is how I've ended up with journals full of these and have not painted anything over them because I just start to love them so much. What I'm probably going to do in the next videos, I'm probably going to cut these in half so they're smaller, bite size, so we can kind of paint them a lot quicker. But I hope that you really enjoyed layers 3 and 4 and it has inspired you to try this technique, and I hope to see you next time in our next video. So until then, have a great and beautiful day. Bye!